Welcome, my friend. Let me take you back to a motorcycle ride that I had on a stormy day some years ago. I was on my way home after meeting a good friend of mine. I was soaked and understandably wasn't in the mood to take great life lessons at the moment. When I shifted gears, I could even feel a good amount of water moving back and forth in my shoes. I was really cold from the constantly rushing air, so I decided to have a little rest at an abandoned cemetery that I used to see a lot as a child. I know I grew up to be a somewhat morbid person to like cemeteries as relaxing places, but I remember back then as a little kid traveling with my parents, I looked through the window of our car and kept wondering what mysteries this cemetery might hold. Places like that, I think, can easily catch a child's imagination, and it certainly did mine. We never stopped there though. There was no reason for us to do so. It was about 350 meters, that is 1150 feet away from the nearest town, and there were no obvious parking options. This place lingered in my mind for a long time after that, and now I was standing there for the first time in my life, as an adult. Well, not standing yet, but first struggling to push my motorbike over the ditch between the road and the cemetery. But after I finished that, I thought that I earned my little rest, so it was time to take a look around a bit. I was still a very arrogant person back then, but even in those days, I didn't want to disrespect the memories of the people who were buried there. I made sure not to park my motorbike anywhere near the graves and watched my steps carefully. The strange thing was that it didn't really take much to do so. More than 3/4 of that big plot of land that was surrounded by a half-ruined brick wall, it was simply empty. No headstones, not even a small wooden cross. At that point, I wanted to explore those mysteries that I had thought a lot about as a child. So I walked closer to the headstones to find clues, how old these graves were, names of the people who were buried there, and anything like that. Then I saw an engraved text, but I couldn't read it. And yet, it gave away instantly the tragic secret of this place. The text was written in Hebrew, and I cannot read or speak Hebrew. It was a Jewish cemetery. And now this place was telling its story to me without using any words. I turned towards the big empty plot of land that I saw earlier, and this time I knew the reason why it was like that. Later, I found out that this cemetery was far from being the only one in Hungary that looked like that. There was this sinking feeling in my stomach. And I think for the first time in my life, I felt how the past still lives with us. That big empty space, for me, it was like looking at a book with most of its pages torn out. But these pages were never written on, because the people whose stories they could have contained, they were robbed of their lives. In 1944, with the help of the local fascist government, it took only 8 weeks to deport around 437,000 people from Hungary and feed them into the Nazi death machine. 8 out of 10 of those people were guessed upon arrival. And even if we do not count the potential descendants of those people, more than 500,000 people are missing from my country as a result of the Holocaust. Standing in that cemetery, really horrified by the realization, I could literally see with my own eyes part of that emptiness that those people left behind. Normally, cemeteries are places where we go to remember. But here, both those who could have remembered and those who could have been remembered were taken away. I wish for something that I never did before or ever since. I wish there were more graves. In any other cemeteries that I visited over my life, this would have been a wish for more tragedy. But in this case, it was calling for less. The child I once was couldn't have imagined the real and tragic mystery behind this place. Death is present in that big empty plot of land as well, but not as bodies. It is there in a much more hidden way, I think. You have to search for it. You have to do your homework, do your research about history. And on that day, I decided that I would do my homework and I would start reading about this topic. So I stepped on a road of learning and started giving up my arrogant view that my understanding of the world was perfectly correct and finished. It wasn't, and it still isn't. It really never will be, but I learned a lot, and I still do, mostly from books, but also from other media. And tomorrow, I'm going on a trip to southern Poland, visiting the concentration camp and death facility of Auschwitz-Birkenau. I think this will be a major step on my journey of not just understanding the Holocaust, but also the deep, deep darkness humanity can sometimes descend into. And even though this is a somewhat personal journey for me, I would like to share my experience with you, to grow together from it. So please, if you have any similar stories about facing the impact of the past on the present, please tell me in the comments. It doesn't have to be about the Holocaust. It can be about anything in this topic. Because I really think that without stories, there's no real understanding. Take care, friends, and goodbye.